Hi, I'm George Reiter. I'm the co-chair of the Harris County Green Party, and I'm your host for tonight on Public Affairs, Public Access. We're going to be talking tonight about a principle of the Green Party, which is nonviolence. It's been a principle of the Green Party since its foundation. A few years ago, the Texas Green Party made as part of its platform the idea that being committed to nonviolence meant you should not be hitting children at all. No spanking, no discipline that corresponds to some kind of bodily injury. In the years since then, as we've been thinking about it, the idea has morphed, actually, into the idea that in terms of raising children, what nonviolence means is you shouldn't be punishing them. Punishing children means to hurt them in order to get them to do what you want them to do. And we don't need to be hurting children at all. This, of course, is not very much part of the culture here in the United States. Even less so in the state of Texas, where we have state laws which encourage people who are responsible, not even their parents, for the well-being of children, are encouraged to use corporal punishment if they feel that it's necessary. We've seen just recently, actually we've seen many examples recently, going back to Adrian Peterson not too long ago, who felt that disciplining his child meant that he was entitled to beat him to the point where there were welts on the child's body. His ex-wife disagreed, but that notion that we're entitled to treat children with a kind of disrespect for their physical being that would be illegal for an adult. Whatever you thought about your right to do it, is one of the things I want to get at tonight. I want to unpack that. I want to expose that for the really dreadful idea that it is. More recently, and it was really the reason why I wanted to do this show, particularly on this subject, was we had an example of a teenager in high school, I believe it was high school, who had a cell phone taken away from him in class. And when he went back to get it after school, the principal wouldn't return it to him. He became agitated and upset, and in the course of being escorted out of the building by a policeman, I mean, what are policemen doing in our schools, but that's related, but for the moment we won't touch that one. Apparently, the boy called him a name, and the policeman then proceeded to beat him 9 times with a baton of some kind, nightstick, while he was standing, and then 9 times while he was on the ground. That's what was reported. That was not found to be a violation of his responsibilities as a policeman, and the school did not find it to be a violation of the responsibilities of the policeman to the school. That is to say, it was okay to do that to the child, presumably because he had called the policeman a name. It's that commitment of our culture to, we can do whatever we want to children in order to make them behave the way we want them to. And if they behave in ways we don't want them to, it's okay to go ahead and beat them. Sometimes, a while back, a year or so ago, there was a story in the paper about a couple that beat their child to death. It was a baby, really. And their excuse was he wouldn't stop crying. I mean, that was the explanation. We can talk a bit about what's going on with people, what's going on with the policemen, what was going on with Adrian Peterson. I don't know in the details of the particulars, but the general way in which we get irritated with children and in which we respond by this kind of violence, so dangerous to the children, that's a kind of pattern which I think we understand, and we can talk a bit about that too. But I want to get now to the idea, the possibility, that it's possible to raise children without violence, without corporal punishment, indeed without punishment of any kind. That we do not need that. We as young human beings do not need that in order to become fully self-realized, able to function in the society. With me tonight is my wife, Deb Shafto. She is a retired pre-K teacher and kindergarten teacher. She is currently in training with hand-in-hand parenting to do courses on really how to parent without punishment. There is a course going on which is led by Pat Jones, who is a nurse midwife in the area, has been for 30, 40 years, using those techniques, using those ideas to teach parents how to respond to their children in ways that are not destructive of their lives. Deb?
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you say to most people, and if you had said to me a few years ago, you can raise children without parenting. I'm sorry, without punishment. You can't raise them without parenting. There's no question about that. It's a very difficult job, and if you're listening, and I do hope you are listening and you will want to participate, let me say up front that parenting is probably the most difficult thing you'll ever have to do in your life.
And you get no training for it whatsoever.
And you get no training for it, and your past experience as growing up as a child with the parents that you had is worse than no training. We'll elaborate more on that as well. So how is that possible? How can you raise children without, when they're bad or wrong, punishing them, which is the way we tend to think of how it's supposed to be done?
Well, let me say to begin with, we need to talk just a little bit about how the brain functions. The brain is divided into 3 individual sections. They are related. There is conversations travel back and forth, but the areas of the brain seem to have been developed at different stages of human evolution. The base of the brain, which is called the reptilian brain, is responsible for body temperature, heartbeat, keeping you alive, blood pressure, that kind of thing. The second overlayer to that is called the limbic system. Now, there are lots of structures within the limbic system, but basically, altogether, they control the emotions, including flight or fight. And then the outer cerebrum allows us to have language, develop modern complex relationships, and voluntary body movement. What happens when a child is born? The most important thing to an infant is to get an attachment to a parent, or to somebody, so that somebody will remember to take that baby out of danger's way. My favorite way of saying it is to take it out of the cave when the bear comes.
Don't they feel that attachment already? I mean, they've been, we grow up inside the body of a mother.
They have the attachment already in place, but they're focusing around for somebody to attach to. And they will, if they do not have that attachment, they will become fussy, cranky, unreasonable. They have very few options for behavior. And they will run the gamut until somebody pays good, close, loving attention. It's absolutely essential for their well-being. Once the child has had that attachment, he will begin to, oh, I'm safe now. I can watch the environment around me, and they will begin to learn. That's when learning starts. What happens when there's an emergency as an adult? The baby is crying, the supper is boiling over, and my husband's coming in and dinner's not ready. Blah, 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 blah. You retreat from this ability to think down into this middle brain.
You meaning the parent does?
The parent does, and begins reacting out of that. And when you're reacting out of that, that's also, it's not only the area of emotions, it's the area where a lot of memories are stored. So when you're acting out of that middle brain, what you do is what was done to you. When you're fully conscious and able to operate with your upper brain, I'm touching it here like that's where it is, but with the cerebrum, you're capable of reasoning. When you're operating in the lower brain, you're no longer capable of reasoning. It's flight or fight or whatever you know to do. There's no thought about it.
So it's past experience of whatever
Yes.
you felt you needed to do, and it's something like the situation you're in.
Yes.
That gets activated.
So that's what happens when they can't make the baby stop crying. They know they've got to make the baby stop crying, and they get all panicky, and they do what was done to them. They start beating it. And at no time does the baby all of a sudden respond, "Say, Mom and Dad, would you like different behavior from me?" You know, the baby just keeps crying. The more it's hit, the longer it cries, and the more it is struggling to get that contact, that loving contact with somebody. So it's a vicious circle that ends up in these places. And I know these people feel can you imagine what it feels like to beat a baby to death?
Well, probably very few people have had that experience, but my bet is that most people who've had children have had the experience of feeling overwhelmed, frazzled, not knowing what to do, angry and upset. Again, that's part of the sort of limbic system you're talking about.
Yes.
Responding out of that and doing something that they wish they hadn't.
Yes.
Usually pretty soon afterwards. I mean, people have told me, well, I hit my child, and then a few minutes later I was in tears because of what I'd done.
Well, some people also have been badly treated enough, or in my terms, badly treated enough, so that they are proud of it. They think that's the way to do it. I don't know how many times I've had people say to me, well, they beat me till I was black and blue, and I turned out okay. And what I have to say to that is that we have no idea, really, what people are capable of. Every once in a while, we'll see somebody who's made it through, a genius, a creative person, a benevolent person, a saint, if you will. We don't know how that's produced, but wouldn't it be nice if we could produce that every time? Because what we're doing now, acting as we were done to, is not producing these people. I think it's...
I want to stay there for a minute, because I think
Sure.
it's an important point. It's an important point for politics, for the Green Party. We see in our culture all kinds of people behaving irrationally, doing things to each other which are at the expense of the other person, hurting each other in various ways. And we take it to be normal. We take it to be
commerce.
that way of behaving. It is encouraged by a system which rewards making profit over providing for basic needs, but it's usually that system is justified on the basis of that's how we are. What I hear you saying, and what I want to emphasize, is that that's who we are in a culture where children are so disrespected and so punished that we grow up with very little of our thinking ability available, and much of the time reacting out of this sort of patterned limbic background.
Yes.
Where our history is really determining what we're doing in the present. So somebody says something to you that makes you, that you think is insulting, whether it is or not, because it resembles something that happened before, you react out of what happened before. And so you're very sensitive about things. So I got that correct, right? That's what.
Yes.
Okay. So that being the case, and I do say it is the case, where do we go from here? What could be done other than? Well, let me put it another way. How do you, as a parent, when you're in that situation, and you can hardly think yourself, how do you deal with the child in a way which isn't hurtful to it?
Well, one of the things we recommend, and it's really important, is that you find a partner, a friend, somebody that you can go give a call to. Because if you can express your emotions away from the child, you get some reasonable ability back. You can begin thinking again, okay, what does this child really need? Up until that point, it's like, how can I make him shut up? And that's not very productive. It doesn't lead anywhere we want to go. But having somebody that you can call and say, I'm at my wit's end, I'm going to kill this kid, when you don't really mean it, of course. But just having somebody to talk to is an enormous pressure valve, pressure release.
It gets that thinking mind working.
Gets the thinking mind working again. And I have to say that there's been a lot of it over the years. I don't think it was 100 years ago when children were thrown out onto the streets because the parents couldn't feed them. 6 or 7 years old, go fend for yourself. And you don't see that happening anymore. As a society and as individuals, we are much more able to care for our young than we have been. I saw in Rome, where there was no birth control, that what they used to do is put babies out on the garbage pile. There was a huge pile of garbage. They didn't have sanitation trucks. Huge pile of garbage behind the house, and they would just throw the baby out there.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. We have come a very, very long way in looking at what it is to be human. And in fact, I think you can see it in a lot of the thinking. There's still a lot of ways we need to stop inhibiting children's ability to think. But we've come a long way already.
I want to say a little bit more about that because it's relatively recently, actually. And really, even in the present now, for many, many people, children are not really regarded as fully human. That's why you can hit them.
Yes.
They have to be molded. They have to be, the external forces have to create them as viable cultural beings. They don't have it inherently in themselves. And we used to talk about, really, people talked about children don't feel pain.
No. Did anybody ever talk about
that? Yeah. But he's too young to feel pain. We circumcised baby boys, for instance.
This is true. Without anesthesia.
Without anesthesia, or maybe a little, depending on your religion, a little drop of wine on your lips. What's that about? I mean, other than an insensitivity to the child, to the baby, as able to feel just as you would feel.
Yes.
Yes. There was a story of a doctor at the turn of the century, in 1910, who wrote in his diary he had some drugs he wanted to try and he wasn't sure about their safety, so he tried them on his children.
Yes.
So we have come a long ways from that. But as I said at the beginning, we're still, and I just repeated, we're still not at the position where we're really respecting children as full human beings and entitled to the full rights of a human being. Although, there is considerable progress in that. I say we, the culture in the United States, for the most part, doesn't. There is a UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which recognizes very clearly that you're not allowed to hit children.
Yes.
There are now 41 states in the world,
Nations, you mean?
nation states in the world, for which you are not allowed to hit children. It's illegal to hit children. There actually isn't any punishment for it, but it's by the culture saying
Yes.
this. Sweden went from 75% of the population thinking that a good spanking every now and then has set you on the right road, to something like 11% of the population now thinks that that's the true in about 30 years. So simply really the kind of conversation we're trying to have right now, which says, look, that really doesn't make sense, actually works over time. And I'm optimistic about the future, and really the future of humanity, because I think much of the progress we make in the world is because you get a generation of children coming in that's treated a little bit better and is a little bit less reactive than the previous generation. But back to the subject of raising children without punishment, of you're a parent and you've managed to calm down some, right? If you're lucky, you've got somebody you can talk to. It might be a co-parent. If you're a single parent, it's got to be friends somewhere. But
Yes.
people can probably do that. I mean, if you're listening and this makes sense to you, you can probably find some of your friends who are willing to trade listening to you.
Absolutely.
This experience of being at your wit's end because you don't know what to do with the children anymore is a pretty common one. Certainly. I have 2 children. Deb has 1. We've all experienced that. As you were saying earlier, part of the reason that we're frustrated with the children is because they've lost, they're functioning out of their own limbic zone. They're no longer feeling attached to you at all. They're bouncing around, bouncing off the walls because they don't know where are you,
Where is my salvation?
Where is my salvation? So you've calmed down, then what?
Well, I think there's lots you can do. Once you pay good attention, good loving attention to the baby or the child, it doesn't have to be baby. It works with children of all ages. It even works with adults. If once you give them good attention, there's and then they are able to regroup and go on with the business. Now, that doesn't mean that every child is going to love doing their homework. But I think what we really need to do about that is do something about the schools. I mean, this business about being mean to the children carries over to our whole educational system. What you were talking about before, about this boy who is, this is his telephone. This is a really valuable thing to him. And he's brushed off, no, the office is closed, go away. He's a living human being. If you were an adult, you wouldn't expect him to take that.
Right.
If you went to park your car and the guy who parks your car wouldn't give you the keys back, he said, I'm taking your car for the night. He would act pretty much the same way.
Right.
And you wouldn't expect to be beaten to a pulp if you called him a name.
Yes. When needs are frustrated, we get angry, and when we get angry, we tend to do things like that.
Yes.
I want to tell a story, though. You were mentioning about the need for reconnection. Mm-hmm. My granddaughter was about 2.5, and she was living with us at the time. She might have been just visiting. In any case, she was with me for the day, and she was busy reading. Now, of course, she couldn't read, but she liked turning the pages and looking at the pictures, and she was actually reading it to me. She'd seen us read, so she was making up stuff and reading what she was seeing. And I was just paying attention, just delighted with her. It was just wonderful. I've always been just delighted with her from the moment she was born. I got a phone call, and it was some struggle going on, some problem, some complex thing happening where people were upset with each other, and I was involved in it and still thinking about it when I hung up the phone. And I went back to looking at her, but I wasn't really present. I was still thinking about what had happened. And she came over to me, and she went like this, tapped on my forehead. And I got the message.
Right. Anybody home?
Anybody home? And I went back, oh, of course, sweetie, here I am. And she was fine. She went back to reading the story. And so, I mean, it's to the point you were making about the absolute need that we have.
Yes.
And clearly for our safety.
Yes.
You know, you characterize it as who's going to
take me out of the cave when the bear comes?
when the bear comes, sort of connecting it to our early history. But surely that connection with the mother was a absolute necessity for us.
Oh,
and I mean, there have been stories of babies who were cared for one reason or another. They were in an incubator, or before people realized this.
An orphanage.
Is that what it was? Mm-hmm. But they weren't loved.
No, they weren't handled, they weren't picked up, they weren't cooed at, and they died in record numbers.
Right. So it's absolutely essential. This quality that I'm calling connection, but is also really related to love in a very way we might want to try to tease out a little bit.
I also want to say in here that it's easy to point fingers at parents and say, now, do this, do that, don't do this. But that's very, very, very difficult. This is the most important job in the world today, is raising the next generation. There is a breed of owl, for instance, that will starve itself to make sure its offspring is fed and the next generation is launched. It will actually starve itself to death. I believe it's just as important for us. And we give no resources. What are women paid? How will they support themselves? The wealthy of this country like to point fingers about how hard they work, and this woman is expecting welfare and food stamps. And I'll guarantee you, I will put $1,000 on it. Nobody who makes those statements is working anywhere near as hard as that mother. But there is no support. And my ideal is that there will be something like an ambulance team. You'll dial 811, and the team will come to your house, and they'll have food on the truck in case you're out of food, and they will take care of the baby or the kids, or interrupt or care for what's going on until you get back on your feet. And it would, okay, so it's a pie in the sky, but it would be so wonderful if women, it's usually women who do most of the raising. More and more men are partners in that now. In my grandfather's day, it was unmanly. That you wouldn't catch my grandfather changing a diaper. And it changed over the years until now. It seems to me, maybe it's only the men that I see, but the men that I see are sharing the partnership. And that makes it a lot easier. But where somebody has to stay home and somebody has to work, because women do the nursing, the women stay home. And it's not an easy job. It is just not an easy job. It calls on resources that are in scarce supply because they weren't supplied to the woman while she was an infant.
So, again, how do you go back and reconnect? I mean, my granddaughter did it for me, basically.
Yes. Oh, I think they do. I think that's what a temper tantrum is.
But she wasn't upset. Oh, really? I mean, because she wasn't upset at the time, so she certainly had the
She was
flexibility
operating
to do
in
that.
her
Right.
cerebrum.
But you have a child who's already upset. They're not going to be able to do that for you.
No, they aren't.
So you have to provide it somehow.
Yes.
So you were saying a temper tantrum what is that?
It's trying to get your attention. I need attention here. Things are not right for me. And instead of getting the attention, they usually get smacked around because we don't allow that behavior.
Right.
But the behavior itself is only a fundamental and very large need to reconnect. That connection is, I can't tell you how essential it is.
Well, tell me.
I can't. No, it means when people who haven't had the connection look back on their early lives, those moments of connection stand out like gems against this night sky.
Yes.
And imagine if you could live raised in that. And of course, there are things that need to be done. The beds need to be made, the dishes need to be done. You can't spend all your attention on one child because often you have more than one. But nonetheless, we need to make a huge effort to alleviate the burdens that the caregiver has so that they are able to give that kind of attention.
In a way, it's an extension of what you were saying about what we need as children. We need the support of others. We need that sense of connection in a larger society to do these more complex tasks.
Yes.
And to the extent that we don't have that someone to call, that we're left to go back to our limbic state, so to speak.
Which we don't want to do.
And react on
That's right.
past experience and not so much about what's actually happening.
And what that does, when you've had a temper tantrum, smacked your child, and you are required by every cell in your body to love this child, and you've hurt him, and that creates another episode for the limbic system to lump up and to be upset about.
As you feel badly about yourself because of what you just did.
Yes.
Right. And feeling badly about yourself is sort of being stuck in that.
Yes.
That
morass.
Emotional morass.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so the child is having a tantrum, and you've had a chance to call your friend. They've been doing it for 5 minutes, so
Yes.
you had some time. And now what do you do?
Well, I think if your child is having a temper tantrum, give it all the attention you can possibly give. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry you cannot have another piece of candy before supper. I'm sorry you're upset about that, but you cannot. I will not let you. I know you'd like to hit the baby, but I'm not going to let you hit the baby. I don't care how much fun it feels like it would be. I'm not going to let you do it. And you interfere with your body while giving the child attention. You don't allow these things to happen and then punish. It just reinforces the behavior.
And suppose they hit you.
Well, supposing your granddaughter had come over and instead of knocking gently on your head, had given you a whap. How badly would it have hurt?
Right.
I don't think they usually do that. But if they did, you could say, I'm not going to allow you to hurt me. I'm not going to allow you to hurt anybody.
Right.
I know that's not what you want to do, and I'm not going to let you do it.
And presumably they would continue to have a tantrum because, or not? Would you
I
think
think that
the presence of you there and you're paying attention and they know it?
The adult loving attention given to the child.
Yes.
Not just loving, but intelligence. Able to rise over,
Yeah.
you know, the feeling that
Right.
comes up with you because you were hit.
And presumably they get that you're not feeling that way anymore. I mean,
Yes.
if they feel you're disconnected
Yes.
from your ability to think clearly about them,
Then that sends them into a complete.
that's already
Yes.
no good at all. So.
Yes. Anyway, what we're hoping to do with this is to make parenting more easy. In spite of what people say about, oh, I was spanked and I'm going to spank my kids, I don't think anybody enjoys it. I think it's hurtful. It's not only hurtful to the child, it's hurtful to the person doing the damage. That isn't usually taken into account, that when you're doing something terrible to somebody, that it also hurts you. But it's true, whether it's recognized or not. And it would be nice to have done with all of that. It would be nice to have children raised not just with this, but right through school, so that their curiosity is enhanced, tickled, grown, rather than sit down and be quiet.
Yeah.
That's no way to treat a child. I know, as an adult, if I were to tell you that, if you walked into my house and I told you to sit down and be quiet, You'd be outraged. And the children are outraged as well. It's just that they have already learned that they're not in a position of power. There is nothing they can do about it. And it's almost like the school system is trying to disempower them, like this child who couldn't get his phone back.
What about crying? What about a child that's crying? You don't know what they're crying for. You don't know what they're crying about. You've tried everything. Well, nobody has diaper pins anymore, but we did when we were raising children. You've looked to see what's hurting them. You can't find anything, and they keep on crying. What would you do then?
I would put the child. I've done it with children. I taught pre-K, and when the children were upset, I just put them on my lap and told them I'm sorry they're sad, and if they can tell me about it, fine. I think you would want the same thing. If something awful happened in your life and you came home crying, would you want to be spanked for it? Stop that crying. No way. No way. You would expect somebody to give you a sympathetic ear, put their arm around your shoulder, and be tender and careful with you.
Right.
Why would they expect less?
Yes. And let them cry as long as they need to cry.
Yes. Nobody yet has cried for an entire year.
So what would you do in a situation where the children are being what would be called willful? So when you get to be about 2.5, 2.5, 3, you begin to realize you don't have to do what your parents tell you to do.
Well, I think that's what happens for the children at that time is before that, the whole world is them and they are the whole world. And at 2, they begin to understand, oh, I'm separate. I'm not part of. And they begin to explore what they can do in their own power. And it may be inconvenient, but imagine, graduating from college and feeling like you're ready to take on the world and you're going to go do something wonderful for the world or for yourself or whatever, and being, smacked down and told to stop that. And that's what we do with it. They're 2 years old and they're proud of themselves and full of themselves. And because it's been knocked out of or taken away from us, it irritates us to see it in the little ones. So we try and take it away from them. And it's not a good thing to do.
Oh, that's interesting. But I want to get back to that in a moment. But I want to encourage those of you who are listening and find this an interesting conversation and want to participate, either by objecting to what we say, about supporting what we say, about telling a story of your own. Please give us a call. The phone number is on the screen, and we'd be glad to include you. I've lost my train of thought.
We were talking about children being full of themselves, full of life.
Right.
And because we've been so hurt, we find it objectionable. But it's really quite marvelous to see a child, a 2-year-old, all of a sudden tell you, I don't like orange juice. Hello? Where did that come from? Been drinking orange juice for, a year. Or having, desires of certain clothes, or I don't like those shoes, or, all this stuff. All of a sudden there's a little human being there with his own likes and dislikes. And it can be just fun and delightful, but it can also be irritating. It's anything. If you haven't been allowed to express yourself,
right,
you will find it irritating when other people do.
So you try to deal with the situation the way you were dealt with in that situation.
Right.
What if there's something you really need them to do? It's time to go to school, let's say, or you just want them to get dressed. They want to run around naked. You want to get dressed because you're going to take them outside, and in this culture you can't take a baby naked, even on a beach, actually.
Right.
Or most beaches. That's probably changing too.
I think if you don't use too much discipline, if you are not over-regulating, that the child will be cooperative. I've never seen them not be. I've seen, in the classroom, I've seen children become cooperative when they saw cooperation on the parts of others. It's much easier, it's much friendlier, it feels better to do nice things. If somebody only wants to wear the red shoes, well, let them. Who cares?
So there's some flexibility in terms of what you require of them.
Absolutely.
But suppose there really is something you really require of them. There's some limit. There's some limit that you want to set, such as, the usual example is, don't hit your little kid, your
Right. Little brother or
your
sister.
little brother or sister.
Right.
Right.
In that case, I think that you must say, I cannot allow you, I will not allow you to do that. I know you're angry. I don't think it pays to punish them for the anger, but I know you're angry, but you cannot hurt her or him. And put your body right in the way. We're not talking about an 18-year-old who could really do some damage here. You know, if you've done this right all along, they're going to be cooperative. You won't have those problems. I think the problems arise when there are too many negations. When you're told what you can do, when you can do it, how you must do it, you know, all this sort of stuff. There's a natural rebellion goes on. And I think that's a lot of what happens in the middle years of school. Just enough.
Basically, you're not getting to play enough.
Yes.
You're not getting to do the things you want to do.
Yes.
For whatever reason you want to do them.
Yes.
And they're not consistent with the structure you're in. The sort of limits being provided by the structure you're in aren't really working for you. I guess that's a question. Also a question then about the setting of limits. How do you know the difference between something that you're setting, which is, in the case of don't hit your little child, it's pretty clear, your sister or your brother.
But it could be also, it can't be you have to eat your spinach, but it can be you cannot have a piece of cake before supper. You know, I don't think you can make somebody eat something that's distasteful for them. I don't think that's a good idea. But you can say, no, the supper's going to be ready in a half an hour. You can't have anything else to eat now.
Let's take an example from the schools. Those of you who didn't tune in at the beginning, Deb is my wife, and I know a lot about her experience in the schools. You once had someone come in to your class while the children were running around and playing. And what age group was this?
4.
It was 4.
4 going on 5.
4 going on 5. These are 4-year-olds playing in your class. I take it no one was getting hurt.
No one was getting hurt. In all the years I taught, I had one child who slipped and hit his head on a wastebasket, and he got hurt. But generally speaking, nobody got hurt. If you're not over-regulating, they self-regulate. And in the beginning of the year, it looks pretty messy. By the end of the year, this group is playing with blocks, that group is playing teacher. There was somebody sitting there in my chair reading a book to 3 or 4 kids sitting in front of them. Somebody else is at the literacy table, you know, writing, making, drawing, writing alphabets, whatever. But in the beginning of the year, it's pretty confusing. So the assistant superintendent walked in and he said, "What's going on here?" And I said, "It's free playtime." And he sent a note back with the principal. He didn't dare tell me that. I'm afraid I would have been fired on the spot for laughing at him. But he said, "There'll be no free play here." 4-year-olds.
Right.
You know, come on.
So this is setting a limit that doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all. But it was set, the schools are so rigid that the people who run them feel you have to have, well, let me give you another example. What I started to say is you have to have somebody telling stuff to a group of people who are sitting there doing nothing but listening. You're not allowed to fiddle with your pencil that's painful. So when I started with the children, it's pretty messy, like I said, but they behave themselves. And when we do some lessons, I hear them over in the kitchen area explaining the lessons to each other. Now, you're a teacher of adults, and if you could hear that, you would be ecstatic, wouldn't you? If you heard your students out in the hallway talking about it, right? Oh no, this is how you have to do it. You know, arguing back and forth. It's the commerce between children where the learning really takes place. Not much is gained by telling them data or facts. They have to see it, they have to feel it, they have to know it. It changes over the years, but I'm talking about elementary. And that was what he was telling me has to stop.
You talked about the children as being likely to opt for cooperation.
Oh, yes.
That your sense is they're inherently cooperative? We are born inherently cooperative? I mean,
Well,
clearly to begin with, we are. We cooperate with our parents. It doesn't make any difference what they ask us to do, we do.
Yes.
Right?
But aside from that, we do that somewhat from the power structure. But just imagine, you're driving down the road, there's a little old lady like me stuck on the road with a flat tire. You can drive by and splash her with mud and tell her to get off the road, or you can stop and help her change the tire. Which would you feel better about? I mean, there's not even a question. There's not even a question.
Right.
Cooperation is joyful, is fun, is how we really are. The other stuff is taught.
The other aspect of I wanted to get to, you were talking about the schools being organized where the sort of information and knowledge is transferred into the children. And so one way is to, you tell them, right? But you also read to the children a lot, and you had them tell stories to you.
Yes.
My sense is that children learn a lot by imitating you.
Oh, yes.
To what extent do you think the way you were in the classroom was as significant in terms of them learning these sorts of things as the actual things you said?
Oh, I think that's more important. I think that the telling them something doesn't mean much, but if they can explore and find it out for themselves, it's like, oh, I know you've had that experience yourself. You know, when you've stumbled on or you figured something out, it's a bright, sparkly experience. You're pleased with yourself. We should be encouraging that. There should be things in every classroom that for children to fool around with, to make stuff with, to do stuff. And I think that if we did that, particularly in the early years, I think learning changes as the children grow older. I wouldn't expect children in college to be still playing with model airplanes and stuff. But even in a course like yours, which is physics, the actual doing of it teaches more than a lecture. You know, you want to learn about pendulums, put one on a string, and
Right.
you learn a lot watching it and talking with other people about it.
One of the things I want to get at is this capacity we have to learn by imitation, because people think, and you hear this all the time, and it's part of the disrespecting of children, we have to teach them right from wrong. If I don't teach them right from wrong, how is this naked savage ever going to turn out to be an insurance salesman?
I hope you have higher hopes for your children. But
excuse me, if you're an insurance salesman listening, there's nothing wrong with selling insurance. You've got to make a living in the society we're in.
yes,
And if that was your dream, that's great. Go ahead.
if that's what you do, it's probably not your dream. Anyway, I forgot the question. Silly example.
What do you say to people who think they have to teach children right from wrong?
Oh, I think that's inherent, intrinsic. Like I was talking about the little old lady on the highway, causing her harm, making her get out of your way, or doing something to really make her life easier. What a difference in feeling. You don't need to teach that. It's there. And the children get it. I didn't have fights in my classroom. They wanted to cooperate. And I think that I don't remember ever having to work out. I'd had it first. It's easy enough to work out. Okay, you have it for 10 minutes, now you have it for 10 minutes. But I don't even think that's necessary. I think they will cooperate. I never had to settle those fights all the years I was in the classroom. They know. They know. It's intrinsic. If it isn't beaten out of you or educated out of you, I mean, look what they have to do for, I'm sorry to pick on this, but athletics in school. They go through this rigorous training where they're hurt over and over again, and they, it's rah-rah for the team and, all this sort of stuff. This is to get past non-cooperation and hurting other people. Playing football hurts people.
That's interesting. So you're saying that this major cultural experience, its function in the society is to break down cooperation and
Yes.
to get
Well, you are required to cooperate within your group, only within your group.
Right.
The other guys are the enemy, and we have to not cooperate, and we'll hurt them as much as we can and humiliate them if we can.
sack that quarterback if you can.
Yes, sack the quarterback.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people root for that.
Yes,
So you get sort of trained to root for that kind of experience.
right. As long as it's the other team, hurting them is fine. But I don't think that's a real thing. I really think that that's a social overlay. The kind of feeling you would get driving away from the woman whose tire you changed is a really internal thing. Nobody's going to recognize you. Nobody's going to pay you for it. You just
Yeah.
know you've done the right thing.
And all of us have the experience of being asked for help.
Yes.
And I don't think I've ever been asked for help where it wasn't actually offered. In the streets of New York, noted for being it isn't actually, but it being a cold, hard city. If you ask people for help, they'll walk with you to where you're going to go,
Yes.
if they can.
Yes. When the blackouts came, was a very good example of that. There, way back when, I think it was in the mid-'60s, the power went out all over the Northeast, and people opened their homes. People took people in who were living on the 20th floor who couldn't make a 19-flight climb. People shared food and shelter, and that's who we really are.
Given who we are, and given what you said about who you see us as children, and your experience in the schools, and having somebody come in and tell you to stop having these children play, what would you recommend for how to change the schools? What kind of policy should the Green Party have towards, let's say, early childhood education, which is actually an issue now in the state?
Well, it's an issue for different reasons. I mean, my issue with it is that I would like it to be completely permissive. I would like children to have the chance to explore and discover and have the thrill of discovery. Most children going into a school these days get no opportunity to feel that. They are told where to sit, how long to sit, and listen to me, and I'll tell you what you need to know, and you better remember it, otherwise you get humiliated tomorrow. It's not conducive to real powerful learning. They're saying now in the higher education that the smartest kids are coming from Africa. And the reason I believe for that is that they don't have these schools there. I mean, American children have...
They do hit children in African schools, however.
I don't know if these particular children have been hit. I don't know what the thing is. I really don't know. I do know that I've heard this said, that the smartest children are coming from Africa. That's where the next brains are going to be. And I think we ought to look at what's going on for education.
Well, what would you advise? We don't... You got a soapbox here, Deb.
Okay. Well, I think we need to be careful and gentle and let them take the lead. Let them find out what they want to know. They are very curious and very inquisitive.
And how would you provide an environment for them so that it would be worth exploring?
I would have a room, at least for the early childhood, I would have a room full of interesting stuff that's movable, bendable, changeable, change the composition. I would have a lot of that stuff. I did, in fact, in the room that I had. And I had children that made the most amazing of airplanes. And what they learned from it wasn't just about putting Legos together. They were learning a lot. I had one class, I'm sorry, I don't know if we got time for this. I had one class with 3-year-olds when I first started in that school. And there were a lot of confounds, a lot of mothers came into the class, there were lots of reasons for this, but 3/4 of the class ended up as gifted and talented, where usually there's only one person in a group of 30. 3/4 of the class were gifted and talented. And
Say that again. Just share that again. Just what that experience was.
Just that I had 3-year-olds. I taught English in the morning, Spanish in the afternoon. A lot of the children came to both morning and afternoon sessions. And there were a lot of mothers there. I was glad to have the mothers in the classroom. And we mostly played and did a little singing songs, alphabet songs, that kind of thing. And 3/4 of that class ended up as gifted and talented.
And what's the percentage in the general population of
1
gifted?
out of 30 generally.
I see. So,
So this was
an off the charts.
off the charts.
Right. What about evaluating children? I mean, we have all this high stakes testing with the intention that no child should be left behind. What do you say to that?
What you're doing is leaving them all behind. I mean, you're taking children of different abilities. And I can give you examples. I think we're running out of time, though. I can give you lots of examples of.
You've got just time for one.
Huh? Okay, here's. I had 2 children where children are usually drawing figures with a circle, eyes, and arms come out of here, and the legs come out of here. I had 2 different children, one boy and one girl, different years, who could draw a face, and you knew who it was, and you knew what they were feeling. You could look at that and say, oh, this is Andre, and he's angry. And that's remarkable for a 4-year-old. And it wasn't even measured.
So what you're saying is value and acknowledge whatever capabilities the children are developing and encourage them to continue developing them.
And not punish them if they can't add and subtract or read by a certain time. If they're 15 and can't, fine.
Thanks for being with us. I'm George Reiter, co-chair of the Harris County Green Party. This has been Deb Shafto, also a member of the Green Party, pre-K teacher here in Houston for many years. What I hoped you got out of this is the relationship between the way we raise our children, ways we might raise them differently, so that we might have a different political world to live in. Thanks for being with us.